Josh Brown, did we win?
Kind of.
We might have won.
In terms of not getting substantially ripped off, we have kind of won because last night it was announced that Borderlands 4, after much umming and ahhing over its price point, it has been confirmed to be retailing at the now standard price point of $70, Scott.
At least that's not $80.
That's it. Rather than the very worried about, at least from our corners of the world, $80 price point, because that just seemed absolutely crazy. Not to mention the amount of comments that were coming from Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford about that price and trying to justify it before anything was confirmed, saying stuff like real fans would find a way to spend that much on Borderlands 4. We have finally got an official confirmation that that is not going to happen, and it seems to be, at least from Randy Pitchford's subsequent tweet on X, that it is kind of the Backlash that has been responsible for pricing it at $70. On X, he said, quote, "The big news, no price increase for Borderlands 4. Standard edition launches not at $80, but at $69.99. They're showing you, so please show them." Then he says you can find links to the pre-order down below, because of course there are a bunch of different editions, Scott. There is a deluxe edition, which is actually $99. There is a special deluxe edition, which is actually $130.
Oh, good.
So there are ways to buy Borderlands for more than the $70, but the point is that you have apparently showed them, i.e. 2K and Take-Two, and they have responded, and Randy now wants you to go out and buy Borderlands 4 at this price point. And I just think it all kind of stinks. Even though we have won, it doesn't feel like much of a win.
I can't tell whether this is all a bit of spin, because it wasn't an official announcement in the first place. It was Randy Pitchford responding to someone asking if the game was going to be $80. And then Big Pitchford went all the way off down another road saying like, well, you know, if you justified it's Borderlands, you would find a way to pay for it. At no point was that dovetailing off an official announcement in the first place. So now he gets to capitalize on, they listened, we dropped the price, don't worry, no increase for you guys. It's all fine. But you could argue that it never was anyway.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of being listened, that the people are getting listened to.
Yes.
That the $80 price point or £80 price point is being thoroughly rejected by the masses. That's a good thing.
It is.
I just, because it's Mr. Pitchford, and dude is literally a magician. So even when you think he's over there, he's actually over there.
I always forget that. He's a magician.
He once came out and just did a bunch of improv magic. That's how you do it. When he was on stage once to kill a bit of time, but puts it in the case, takes it out again. And I just don't really trust him. But at least the thing is, we all roundly hated the $70 price point for a very long time. So if you want to get in the good graces, maybe put it down to $50. Join Split Fiction. Join Claire Obscure. 50's the new hotness.
I think that's a good point to make, because I personally don't think this was a long plan to make everyone fine with it being $70. But I do think it's a nice sort of knock-on effect of this entire drama that's been going on, because the way that we get people being fine, and ourselves included, like with $80, with $70, is to normalize it bit by bit, and to view a game only being $70 as a win is, not great, because that should arguably just be the standard price across the board, and we cannot stop getting annoyed at people pricing things to the absolute max just because it could have been worse. And I think that's so often the case in the gaming industry, where you think, wow, I'm getting ripped off, but it could have been worse.
Which is always, I was going to say, that's always the thing about taking part in this industry is, well, at least it could have been worse.
Yeah.
Or at least I didn't pay the new premium price point, which is still in the conversation. Even as we're recording this, Xbox are gearing up to sell The Outer Worlds 2 for $80, which we did a video on that, how that's just pretty much killed that game outright. It'll still be on Game Pass, so people are still going to have access to it, but the price point is way too high. It does make me wonder if things like this do hopefully stem the tide and allow for conversations in the boardrooms, in whichever meeting rooms need to happen, to say, hey, look, the public are not even going to accept this at the beginning. There's not going to be a trial period because there's already so much hate around it.
That's it. I think, to be fair, we can push back the tide, and I don't want to be completely pessimistic, but I think it'll be only a matter of time until that tide does overtake us all.
How dare you?
And drag drag us down to the
What are you, a
abyss.
Nintendo fan?
Because all it takes is one major success, I think, for the publishers and developers of the world to go, well, it worked for them, so it'll work for us.
Yeah.
And Borderlands might not have been it. That might not have set the world on fire if it did launch at $80. So even though this is kind of a win, I do only view it as a bit of a temporary win because we still have Grand Theft Auto 6 on the horizon. We have a few other games launching at the end of this year, like you said, The Outer Worlds 2. That's going to be $80. But if you do vote with your wallet or, kick up a stink online, maybe they will get it into their heads that this price point is not going to be the smash hit home run that they think it's going to be. It's not just going to be the real fans who then say, yeah, that's totally fine, we're going to go out and buy it. We're going to be more scrutinous of the games themselves, how much they're being sold for, what we're actually getting, and ultimately I just think a price point at that level, and I've said it before, sets expectations way too high.
Well, you mentioned GTA 6, which I feel like that's going to be the test case. Like, after that long of that game being in development, if they do push for the rumored $100 price tag, or that's the thing, because of this whole weird order of things, like, well, at least it wasn't blah. If GTA 6 is $80, does that become, well, it's not £100. It's not $100.
It's not $100.
It could be worse.
It could be worse.
I still feel like the industry overall is struggling with different ways to, for the way they tell it, make enough money to just keep going in terms of the level of production that people want from the AAAs, the high-end stuff. It's what we talked about in the last video with Outer Worlds 2. But whether just a high enough price point is the thing that gets people there, or I just think, like I said in the last video, I think it's the lower price point that just is far more palatable. Borderlands 4 as well feels like that kind of release that is just a little bit one too many. Like, it felt like 3 was something that took a very long time to come out in the first place, and then it was like, not only did we do a 3, we're going to do a Borderlands 4, we're going to stretch this thing out. The movie went down horribly.
Yes.
And we're just kind of, I would think if you're them, you're just happy for the people that show up, which is maybe why you're trying to overfleece those people, because the assumption is that it's a smaller amount of people anyway.
Well, I don't know, that's the thing, when you get like these franchises that have been going on a long time, it's kind of hard to gauge where, we just did a video on Final Fantasy 16 where we talked about how hard it is to gauge where the fan base is, like, who is showing up to your game? Is it a broader audience? Do you have that market penetration, or are you focusing on the diehards? And I don't know where Borderlands is, because Borderlands 3 sold astronomically well.
Right.
But does it still have that cultural cachet that you mentioned? Because, it was a bad movie, but no one went out to see the Borderlands movie, or is just the fandom itself that big now, where, like you mentioned, Randy and the team think they can go, well, we'll just push you a little bit further. We know you're going to turn up, so we'll push it a little bit further. I think that's a shame if that's true, because what I hate about when this news breaks or when it's rumored that a game is going to have this price point, as people who do this for a living and talk about games for a living, all the conversation becomes like entirely singled around, that's not a phrase, but you know what I mean, circles around the price point. We only talk about the game in terms of, does it live up to the price point?
Right.
And it sucks that when a game like Borderlands 4 was being rumored to be $80, that's all we talked about it in those, we'd only talked about it in those terms. And when The Outer Worlds 2 comes out at the end of this year, we'll probably only talk about it in those terms. We won't really be able to analyze it necessarily or criticize it as a piece of media, because that, at least initially, that price point is going to have cast such a big shadow and be almost inescapable, I think.
Yeah, we'll see how the rest of the year goes and how the rest of this conversation goes in terms of other games that get these price points, because I do think if you're raising the entry fee, then to me you're saying we have a little bit something extra. But that's, at least that's the way that it seems to get defended on the industry side, where with Nintendo, them having to go on and on about why Welcome to It is worth £8, or why these different upgrades for different games like Tears of the Kingdom, if you're buying that outright on Switch 2, that's now £70 or whatever it is. The assumption of a premium product like a Naughty Dog game or a Rockstar game or whatever it is, to me, I think you do need to prove alongside.
You do.
But it is interesting, just the reality of attaching a price point to a piece of art or to a creation. Over time, that price point changes unless you're Nintendo, and then 9 times out of 10 you can reapproach stuff over time.
Sorry, I keep trying to interrupt you because I'm just hyped up about this topic, but and that's always been a part of game critiquing and game recommending. You of course factor in the price, but like you said, there is an expectation of, well, what is this doing to justify that extra $10 or extra £10 or whatever. And even when we did our podcast over on the What Culture Gaming podcast,
please subscribe,
feed, you know what I mean? And when we talked about the Nintendo Switch 2 and Mario Kart World, maybe it's just a me hang up, but if you listen to that podcast, I cannot get over the price point of it. Like, everything everything I say might as well have an asterisk next to it or a caveat, because I'm saying, yeah, I really enjoyed this game. I like this about it. I like this about it. But I can't escape the fact that they're charging a premium price point, and for me, I didn't see where that extra money was going into the game itself, and that is a shame, because I don't know, maybe not with Nintendo because they never lower the prices, but in most of these cases, in 5 years' time, those discussions mean less because the price of the software obviously comes down in price, and you don't have the same anxiety almost or insecurity about your purchase in that way.
We'll have to just wait and see how Borderlands 4 lands. But at the minute, at least you're not paying as much for it as you were the week before.